Yoko, walking down the stairs, turned to John and said, "Look at how simply he is living. Could you live like that?" In the evening, Prabhupada sat with the three couples, Shyam Sundar and Malti, Gurudas and Yamuna, Mukund and Janki. After a year's separation, they were happy with Prabhupada, and he was happy to be with them. The love they shared and their mutual satisfaction at being together was based on a unifying desire to establish Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement in the important city. Now that Prabhupada had come to London, work would not slacken, it would increase under his expert guidance. Prabhupada could daily instruct the men on organizing more London preaching, and they could report to him as necessary. The woman could also directly serve him, cleaning his quarters, washing and ironing his laundry, and cooking his meals. No one can afford a house like this in England anymore, Prabhupada said. England has gone down. Now these young boys own a place like this, and we are here. Prabhupada, Shyam Sundar spoke up. Our record sold 50,000 copies yesterday. Oh, Prabhupada's eyes widened. Very big business. Prabhupada said that their money and energy should go towards opening the temple in the city. Now they were living comfortably on their aristocrat estate in the suburb, and certainly they should try to involve these important celebrities in Krishna consciousness as far as possible. But the main business should be to open the temple in the city. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has preferred to establish temples in the cities where the people were. Of course, if John could give this place to Krishna, and if the devotees could maintain cows and cultivate the land, as in New Vrindavan, then that would be a different matter. They would have to see what Krishna desired. Prabhupada was strong that some of his disciples were obliged to work full time renovating the estate in exchange for their stay. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, he said, had the serious work of cultivating spiritual knowledge and teaching it to others, and they deserved the respect and support of the rest of society. The arrangement at Teton Hurst seemed more business than charity, but they should tolerate it as a temporary situation. Prabhupada talked with Shyamsundara, Mukund, and Gurudas about their struggle to get housing permits and renovate the temple downtown. Shyamsundara had been right, Prabhupada said, to begin renovating the temple. Krishna would protect their investment. When Prabhupada learned they had secured a series of public series lectures that would commit him to 3 months in London, he smiled. He would be glad to stay and preach in England, he said, for as long as it took to open the London Centre. Prabhupada commanded his 6 London pioneers on succeeding where his sannyasi godbrothers had failed. He told them that because they had chanted Hare Krishna with faith, they had succeeded. They were not great scholars or renunciates, yet they had faith in the holy name and the order of their spiritual master. Prabhupada said that he also was not a great scholar, but that he had staunch faith, the real requirement for spiritual success. A devotee could go many places and accomplish many things, Prabhupada said. But unless he was free of material motive, he would not be bhakti into the hearts of others. He did, with faith in his spiritual master. Now Krishna was blessing Sivananda with a little success. A storefront temple, newly recruited devotees, an interested professor, and other guests coming and chanting. Every one lone preacher could accomplish many things for Krishna, provided the preacher was free from sense gratification and the desire for profit, adoration, and distinction. Srila Prabhupada rose early, about 1 a.m., and began dictating his latest book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna, begun in Los Angeles 8 months before, was a summary of Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto. Starting in 1959 with the first canto, Prabhupada had been translating each successive verse, giving a Roman transliteration, Sanskrit English synonyms, the English translation, and then his commentary. Krishna, however, was all in English with translation and commentary blended together as a transcendental stories. In his verse-by-verse translation of Bhagavatam, Prabhupada was still working on the third canto, so to reach the 10th canto could take many years. But he was uncertain how many years longer he would live. And the thought of passing away without giving the world an authorized, readable account of the 10th canto had been unbearable. Being the account of Lord Krishna's earthly pastime, the 10th canto was the climax of Srimad Bhagavatam and the richest nectar of transcendental literature. Now Prabhupada had enough manuscript pages to print a first volume. Complete with the many color illustrations he had commissioned his artist to paint. To print such a book would be expensive, and Prabhupada had no money, but he depended fully on Krishna and translated quickly in the quiet of early morning. At 4:30, Prabhupada's secretary, Purushottama, entered, followed by Yamuna Dasi. Purushottama offered arti to Prabhupada's small Radha Krishna deities, while Yamuna watched, eager to learn. Prabhupada sang prayers, accompanying himself on the harmonium. During Prabhupada's Mangala Arti ceremony, the other dozen or so disciples assembled for their own Mangala Arti at the temple. As they walked the damp pathway to the temple, they felt the cold air and heard the bell and Srila Prabhupada's singing. They could see through the pre-dawn mist the light coming from Prabhupada's window on the second floor, and the building looked like a lantern in the dark. The sound of the harmonium drifted mystically through the trees. Later that morning, some of the devotees brought Prabhupada several news articles about his London arrival. The Daily Sketch, with its headline, Enter His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta Swami, carried a foot-high photo of Prabhupada with kartals. The Sun Story, Happiness is Hare Krishna, appeared with a photo of Prabhupada and the devotees. And the Daily Mirror showed Saraswati and one of the adult devotees. The Daily Telegraph, however, carried a different kind of article, Hindu temple protest, conversion of office premises in Bloomsbury into Hindu temple is being investigated by the Ministry of Public Buildings and Works, the article began. The devotees' neighbors at Bury Place had apparently complained about the renovation that had been going on for the past 2 weeks. The article quoted a Common Council member. If their planning application is not granted, it will cost them a lot of money. Prabhupada said, the devotees should do everything they could to prevent delays or obstacle to their establishing the temple and installing deities of Radha and Krishna. He suggested they go daily into the city, work carefully and persistently with the officials and secure the authorization. Meanwhile, Shyam Sundara should continue his remodeling work at Bury Place. For example, for Prabhupada, Such diplomatic and legal strategy was as spiritual as translating Krishna or singing before his deities. He was serious, heavy, and his disciples sensed this as he looked at them with full concentration, his intelligent gaze penetrating to see if they understood his directions. This heaviness of the Guru was an essential part of their relationship with him. They were young men, inexperienced, and he was sending them on a mature assignment that required both transcendental and worldly expertise. Serving as Prabhupada's menial messengers and workers, his disciples imbibed his gravity, and they too became heavy. They too became dedicated servants of their Guru. To bungle an important order because of naivete or carelessness would be a spiritual disqualification. Prabhupada had often told them a Vaishnava is not a retired person who only sleeps and eats and chants Hare Krishna. Rather, Vaishnava fights for Krishna, as did Arjuna and Hanuman. And as the devotee tries his best, working in full surrender, Krishna supports and protects him. Dawn arrived and the time for Prabhupada's morning walk. The cold September night shrouded the morning in heavy fog. Some of the low-lying grounds were waterlogged this time of the year, and even in the higher plots, the long grass would remain wet until mid-morning. This climate, Prabhupada admitted, is not at all suitable for me. But having heard of the beauty of the grounds, he insisted on taking his usual morning walk. Titanhurst dated back to the 1770s, when the estate had been renowned for its many varieties of trees and shrubs, one of the most unusual collections in England. Even now, cypresses, weeping birch, Austin poplars, royal palms, redwoods, varieties of pines, monkey puzzle trees, and orchards of cherry and apple graced the stately grounds. One cypress stood more than 125 feet tall, and the redwoods grew even taller. Bushes and vines grew in dense thickets. Close by the main house were hundreds of rhododendrons, a formal rose garden, and several fountains. The estate had its own lake, stocked with goldfish and perch. And at a far end of the property stood a row of greenhouses for grapes and peaches. Designed so as to be a bloom in every season, the grounds had been carefully kept for generations. A recent owner, having employed more than 20 gardeners, John, however, was deliberately allowing the grass to go uncut. Prabhupada walked out into the morning moist, onto the long, wet grass. Dressed almost entirely in black, he wore a Russian hat with earmuffs and black rubber Wellington boots. A black, full-length overcoat given him by the devotees in Germany covered his robes and sweater, leaving only glimpses of saffron cloth. As Prabhupada walked, accompanied by several of his disciples, he passed a fountain near the main house and entered a grove. The path narrowed, with vines and bushes closing, and led them into an open meadow, once a well-tended lawn, but now a field of high grass. Bulldozers have excavated an area which, according to rumor, would soon be a helicopter landing field. At the bottom of the sloping meadow, Prabhupada entered an orchard. Many leaves had fallen from the trees, and the sun's first ray now revealed shavings of autumn gold at Prabhupada's feet. He stood under one of the trees, and the diffuse sunlight made the sky beyond the branches glow golden. In my childhood, he said, there were so many names given to me. My material uncle called me Nandu because I appeared the day after Krishna appeared. And there was a great celebration on that day. I was called Nandu because I was born the day after Krishna. And I was also called Govardhana. One of my sisters used to call me Kacha. I have been called so many names. As children, we were all beautiful. There are always so many names given to them, but all these names, they are all dead and gone. He turned and began to walk again, saying nothing more on the subject. Prabhupada mentioned the British economy, which he said was sinking into the sea because of the pound's devaluation. So many British lords had gained their wealth by exploiting other nations. Now, having exhausted their good karma, they were suffering the results of their sins. They were too poor to maintain their great estates. They used to have 17 men working full time just on the garden, Prabhupada explained. And now they cannot even pay the taxes. So they have to give the whole things up. And it is falling into the hands of Sudras. Isana asked Prabhupada, how is that a person like me from such a degraded background can come to Krishna consciousness? Because you are intelligent, Prabhupada replied. I don't understand. Because you are intelligent, Prabhupada repeated. Isana's wife, Vibhavati, asked, what is the meaning of spiritual master? Actually, I am not your spiritual master, Prabhupada replied. That title is simply a formality. You should think of me as your spiritual father, your eternal father. As they walked past a tractor, Kulakshetra remarked, the tractor is a very wonderful invention, isn't it? Prabhupada turned to Kulakshetra. This tractor is the downfall of the Indian village system. Why is that? It does the work of 10 men. Yes, Prabhupada said. Previously, the young men of the village would be engaged in plowing the field. Then this tractor came along and did the work of all those young men, and they had nothing to do. So they went to the city to try to find work, and they fell into illusion. Stopping beside a clump of yellowed grass, Prabhupada asked, why is this yellow grass different? No one answered. The other grass is green, he said, but this is yellow. What is the reason? Still no one answered. This yellow grass is drying up, Prabhupada explained, because the roots are not attached. Therefore, it is yellow. Similarly, when we detach ourselves from the Krishna, then we will dry up. They walked to a spot where the grass grew almost 6 feet high. Stopping at a path the tractor had cut, Prabhupada smiled. Oh, we can go through there? And he strode ahead with his cane into the head-high jungle of grass and weeds. He walked until he came to a low hill that had been cleared, and he stopped. He stood there, surrounded by the sea of grass and a few disciples. Kulakshetra asked about the song Prabhupada had been singing earlier that morning. The song, Prabhupada said, is about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would rise and he would go out at this time of morning when the sun has risen but is not yet in the sky. As Prabhupada spoke, the mist was already dissipating and the golden glow in the sky had moved higher above the horizon. Prabhupada raised his hands and swayed from side to side. In this way, he said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would dance in the morning. As they returned by the main house, John Lennon stood gazing out through the glass doors, watching. Prabhupada, walking with a cane, dressed in his black coat and his Wellingtons, looked like the gentleman of the estate out for his morning walk. Stopping now and then, he would look at certain trees, touching their bark, rubbing their leaves, inspecting them closely. At the beginning of the walk, a devotee had picked a rose and handed it to him, and he still had it in his hand with care. He had walked for an hour. Everywhere the scenery had been beautiful, and everywhere he had instructed his followers in Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada approached the building where he lived, he met little Saraswati. Taking her hand, he walked along with her to the foot of the stairs where they stopped. Prabhupada was halfway up the stairs when he turned and saw Saraswati standing in the doorway, watching. He beckoned and called to her, "Come on," and she crowded up the stairs after him. When Saraswati came into Prabhupada's room, he asked her, "So, are you old enough to go to Gurukula?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Come here. I am going to put a stamp on your forehead, and then we are going to put you in red mailbox and send you to Gurukula." Saraswati began to cry. "Malti, Malti, I don't want to go," and ran and hid behind her mother. "Come on, Saraswati," Prabhupada coaxed. "Come sit on my lap and I'll give you some prasadam." She came and sat on Prabhupada's knee. "Now get me the stamps, Purushottama," he teased. "We are going to send her to Gurukula." Saraswati shrieked and ran to Malti. To Srila Prabhupada, Saraswati was a pure spirit soul. But because she was in small child's body, he didn't teach her philosophy. He teased her, gave her prasada, treated her with affection, but through her attachment to him, she would become attached to Krishna. After breakfast, when the sun had warmed the air, Prabhupada opened his windows, sat down at his harmonium, and sang bhajans. As he sang with closed eyes, his head shaking, he played the harmonium, and Yamuna sat at the bottom of the stairs, crying tears of appreciation. Prabhupada had been singing for a while when he stopped and called for Yamuna. "Do you enjoy my kirtana?" he asked. "Yes," she nodded, "very much." "The prayers of Narottam Das Thakur," he said, "this sound is above the material platform. It is directly from the spiritual platform, and there is no need of understanding the language. It is just like a thunderburst. Everyone can hear the sound of thunder. There is no misunderstanding. Similarly, these songs are above the material platform, and they crack like thunder within your heart. Why don't you come here every day during my chanting? That would be wonderful." "Yes," said Prabhupada. "From now on, we will record." And every morning after that, Prabhupada sang, and Purushottam and Yamuna would come to his room and record. "What is your favorite bhajan?" Yamuna asked. "What's yours?" Prabhupada returned. "Lord Chaitanya's Sixthastram prayers." "My favorite," said Prabhupada, "is Hari Hari Vifale." He recited the gist of the prayer in English. "O Lord Hari, I have spent my life uselessly. Although I have taken this rare human birth, I haven't worshipped Radha and Krishna, and so I have knowingly drunk poison." There is so much depth of meaning in Narottam Das Thakur's prayers. Purushottama. Once Prabhupada was sitting alone in his room. I walked by and I heard him singing a prayer I had never heard before. And I went in. Of course, everyone knows he sings. He can sing very beautifully, very greatly inspired. but I had never heard him sing as beautifully as he did that one time. I had heard him sing many, many times in many temples, but I had never heard him sing as beautifully as this. I felt very honored to hear it, very privileged. It was beautiful. When he was alone, he just got up and said, "Let's go now." Prabhupada also chanted one chapter of Bhagavad Gita daily for 18 days. Anywhere Bhagavad Gita is chanted, he said, that place becomes a tirtha, a holy place. Purshottama reported to the devotees in the United States these activities of Srila Prabhupada. He's singing prayers a lot, and much of it is being recorded. I must admit that the tapes of songs and prayers he is making now are the best ones I have ever heard. Wait until you hear them when we get back. As the Bhagavatam says, drink deep this nectar, O man of piety, and you shall be taken from this mortal frame. The women cooking for Prabhupada were serving him American desserts, apple pie, donuts, glazed cookies. Prabhupada would smile, but he would only nibble at his dessert. One afternoon he said, "These sweets are very nice, but no one has made me sandesh." None of the devotees knew how to make Bengali sweets. So Prabhupada took them into the kitchen and taught them to make sandesh. Although they had washed carefully, their first attempts produced sandesh that was dry and grainy. But Prabhupada accepted it, preferring the sandesa which Krishna himself used to eat to the Western confections. For the devotees at Titanhurst, to have Prabhupada living among them was to witness Krishna's pure devotee as he engaged constantly in ecstatic devotional service with his body, mind, and words. They could see how Prabhupada was speaking and acting in Krishna consciousness at every moment. And his presence confirmed that the most exalted platform of pure devotional service was a reality. His disciples felt bliss and renewed determination just being with him. Prabhupada's host, John and Yoko, also had the valuable opportunity to be near Prabhupada, although they chose to keep apart. Remaining together in their own world, they mingle but rarely with the devotees. Prabhupada's men continued to work under John's manager, and John was content to let the Swami and his entourage stay. When the head gardener asked John how to treat the devotees, he said, "Let them please themselves." On hearing of certain activities in the main house, Prabhupada commented about the bad influence women sometimes have on men, but he kept out of John and Yoko's affairs. He had his own affairs in Krishna consciousness. Having been whisked from the airport to the Titanhurst, Prabhupada had seen little of London, and one day he asked Shyam Sundara to take him on a tour of the city. Prabhupada had grown up in British Calcutta, hearing London praised as the seat of Britain's world empire. So when he saw how small many of London's historic landmarks were, he was particularly surprised. At Buckingham Palace, he remarked, "We have many houses in Calcutta bigger than this." The Thames, celebrated in the writings of British authors he had studied in college, was a disappointment also. "It's a canal," he said. "It's only a canal." In my mind, I thought it was bigger than Ganges. But the most interesting sight was the building at 7 Bury Place. City officials had recently granted the devotees permission to occupy the temple. That part of the battle was won. Now Shyam Sundara and his few helpers had to finish the remodeling. On seeing the temple's location near the British Museum and Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, Srila Prabhupada became even more anxious that Srila Shyam Sundara fix an opening date as soon as possible. In September, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Swatswarupa about his stay at Titan Hut Park. Here there is a nice big hall, exactly suitable for temple. I have begun to give lectures here on specific days, but there are no outsiders coming. Prabhupada wanted to preach to the outsiders, and if they wouldn't come to him, he would go to them. His first outside meeting, arranged by the devotees, was at Camden Town Hall, in the heart of London, and was well attended by Britishers and by Indians. After Prabhupada's brief lecture, only about 15 minutes, a lively question and answer session began. Woman said, "Would you say Krishna is God or Krishna is love?" Prabhupada said, "Without love, how can Krishna be God?" Woman said, "No, I asked you." Prabhupada said, "Yes, that is the real position. Krishna means all attractive. Anything which is all attractive, you generally love." Man said, "Then the particle of the Supreme Being, man, is also all love." Prabhupada said, "Yes, you are part and parcel of Krishna. You want to love somebody, and Krishna wants to love you. This is loving exchange. But instead of loving Krishna, you are trying to love something else. That is your trouble. The love is there in you and Krishna. And when the love will be exchanged between you and Krishna, that will be your perfection of life." Man said, "Thank you." Indian woman asked, "Would it matter if I worshipped any other? Would it matter whether I worship Krishna or Shiva or Christ or Buddha? Would it matter?" Prabhupada said, "If you worship Shiva, you will get Shiva. If you worship Krishna, you will get Krishna. Why do you expect Krishna by worshipping Shiva? What is your idea?" Indian woman said, "My idea is, would it matter?" Prabhupada said, "Don't you suppose if you purchase a ticket for India, you will go to India? How can you go to America?" Indian woman said, "That is not the point." Prabhupada said, "That's the point. That is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti deva vrata devan pritan yanti pitra vrata." Indian woman said, "But my point is," Prabhupada said, "your point, you understand. Why don't you understand the description of Bhagavad Gita? If you worship demigods like Shiva and others, you'll go there. If you worship Krishna, you'll go to Krishna. What is the difficulty to understand?" Indian woman said, "Do you think that Shiva is a demigod?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, why not?" Indian woman said, "But Krishna says that it doesn't matter the way you worship. All means have the same goal and you will reach the same goal. You can take different paths, but you will come to me eventually." Prabhupada said, "Try to understand. Suppose you have to go to the 42nd story of a building and you are going up one after another. So the goal is the 42nd story, but you cannot claim that after going a few steps, I have come to the goal, the 42nd story. The path is one, that's all right, but you have to reach the ultimate goal. You don't know what is the ultimate goal. You simply say that all paths reach to this goal, but you don't know what is the ultimate goal." A young hippie stood up and shouted, "Hey Swamiji!" People in the audience turned around and looked. "You said if you weren't careful, in the next life we will become a dog. But I want to tell you that I don't mind if I become a dog in my next lifetime." "You have my blessings," said Prabhupada. and the young men sat down. One night, lectures in scattered places around the city proved further the need of a temple. Prabhupada had experienced a similar situation in New York City in 1965. At that time also, he had no temple. His audiences would listen respectfully and then disperse, and he would never see them again. To become Krishna conscious, however, a person needed to hear about Krishna repeatedly, and for that a temple was required. Once Prabhupada had his temple established in London, thousands would be able to come and hear about Krishna, take prasadam, and appreciate the lovely deity form of the Lord. A temple would provide guests with regular, intimate contact with the devotees of the Lord, and this was essential. In the absence of a temple, however, Prabhupada was prepared to go on lecturing all over London. Krishna's teachings, Krishna's kirtan, and Krishna's prasadam were absolute good. They would act regardless of the external situation. Conway Hall was a 500-seat auditorium in Red Lion Square in central London. By arranging a series of 12 lectures over the next 3 months, the devotees hoped to oblige Prabhupada to stay in England at least that long. Guru Dasa had drawn up a list of lecture titles and printed 50,000 handbills. Admission would be 2 shillings and 6 pence. The first night at Conway Hall, about 100 people attended. Prabhupada sat on a cushion atop a table, leading Kirtana, while his disciples sat on the floor. Yamuna played harmonium, and Mukunda and Kulakshetra played mridangas. Prabhupada's Radha Krishna deities stood on their altar on a separate table beside Prabhupada. A Hare Krishna mantra banner hung against the black wall. Guru Dasa had built tonight's lecture, Teachings of the Vedas, and Prabhupada explained that Vedic teachings can be understood only by hearing them from self-realized saints. After Prabhupada's lecture, the audience gave a sustained round of applause. Prabhupada answered all questions and had Yamuna lead a final kirtan. The next day, Prabhupada wrote to a Dr. Shyam Sundar Das Brahmachari in India. I spoke for about 1 hour, and after that, they continued clapping, which confirms their appreciation. At the second Conway Hall engagement, when Prabhupada stood during the Kirtana and began to dance, the devotees on stage joined him, dancing in a circle. Isana played his trumpet, and even Saraswati, her diaper showing beneath her short dress, jumped up and down in ecstasy. Each week would bring another Conway Hall meeting, and Prabhupada dancing became a regular feature. I think it is 6:56, so we'll stop here, Mataji. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much,
you.
devotees, for your kind association. Vancha Galpatarubhyasya Kripa
Sindhubhyo cha Patita Nama Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, everyone. We can meet again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.